Magneto!
Hello, Rivals fans! Happy New Year and welcome back to the Rivals Report, the show that gets you up to speed on Rivals esports news in a nice, bite-sized package. My name is Diatonic and this is the Rivals Report number 30 for the week of January 5th, 2026. On this week's report, the future of Rivals esports is finally here. NetEase have finally revealed the plans for next year's competitive circuit, and we've got everything you need to know. Plus, we're catching up on the Season 5 MRC. Get all the storylines and big matches you need ahead of the tournament's conclusion this coming weekend. We've also got 2 exclusive interviews from some MRC competitors. We'll hear from one of the up-and-comer teams in the Americas region, as well as an Ignite Stage 2 Oceania player. Welcome to the professional era. After waiting with bated breath since the conclusion of the Grand Finals, we finally have a full reveal of the 2026 Rivals Esports roadmap, and there is a lot to unpack. From the calendar and prize pool to some regional updates and so much more, there are big changes coming to the Rivals competitive space, and we're here to get you up to speed. Let's start with the competitive calendar for 2026, which brings us our first big update to the competitive circuit. Starting in April, the Ignite 2026 schedule will kick off with a brand new preseason tournament, giving teams and orgs the opportunity to participate in a big tournament and get themselves some exposure. From there, the timeline looks very similar, with Stage 1 in the mid-season finals running from May through August, and Stage 2 in the Grand Finals running from September to November. The prize pool is set to be at least $3 million once again, but they've clarified that the pool will be uncapped, so it could increase as the season progresses. We do have some changes to the regions of Ignite, mainly the combining of the Asia and Oceania regions into one Pacific region. This reflects the regional split of the MRC, as Asia and OCE are put together in that tournament as well. But beyond just combining the 2 regions, Asia and OCE will actually compete in separate group stages, then come together to clash in the playoffs of each stage. So what they're dubbing as the Marvel Rivals Esports Pro League will consist of the Americas, EMEA, Pacific, and China. Starting in 2026, all Ignite stage tournaments as well as the mid-season finals will contribute towards teams' qualifications for the Grand Finals. Yes, that's right, we're getting a league points system in 2026, where teams' placements in stages 1 and 2, as well as the MSF, will help in their journey to Grand Finals. This also comes with the addition of a promotion and relegation system, which helps provide a path for teams to level up from community tournaments straight into the Pro League. Basically, teams will earn points through the in-game Marvel Rivals Championship to potentially give them the opportunity to enter the league. After the mid-season finals and grand finals, top-performing MRC teams will enter into a promo relegation competition that will pit them against poor performers in the league. These big MRC changes kick off with the Season 6 MRC. It's not totally clear how many teams will qualify for the early 2026 season, but this MRC will serve as the final direct qualifier for teams wanting in. Then, once MRC Season 7 rolls around, teams will be competing for points to compete in those promo relegation competitions later in the year. They've also said that teams will earn points for continuous participation in the MRC, so it sounds like teams that show up will get a little extra. One of the biggest announcements as part of the reveal was the creation of the Partner Team Program. Like several other esports out there, NetEase is moving to partner up with several orgs across the globe to help build a more stable foundation to build the esport upon. There's an open partnership application available for interested orgs, which actually closes on January 15th, so not a lot of time to get involved. Teams selected for the program will take part in a revenue share from, quote, in-game team-themed content, and they'll also receive support for participating in the league. And yes, that means team cosmetic bundles are on the way. They haven't confirmed exactly what these will consist of, but you'll be able to support your favorite team by buying their in-game items. So to kick off this new system, teams invited to the preseason in Stage 1 will be the 12 new partner teams, some yet-to-be-announced guest teams, and also some teams from the Season 6 MRC. We don't know exactly how many teams are coming into the pipeline via those methods, but the first window for promo and relegation will come after the mid-season finals, providing a shakeup about halfway through the year. Then by the time 2027 rolls around, the system will be in full swing as the partner teams, MRC Season 7 through 11 qualifying teams, and guest teams enter the system. With all these changes, there are some big names reacting to the announcements and teasing some potential involvement. Names like Team Liquid, Space Station Gaming, and the Kansas City Pioneers have reacted to some of NetEase's tweets in some way. We can also speculate some of the teams that have paused operations and Rivals may make their way back into the game, like Sentinels, 100 Thieves, and Envy. And of course, there are plenty of smaller orgs gunning for those partner slots and looking to solidify their rosters ahead of the start of the 2026 season. There are massive things coming to Rivals Esports this year. Now that the proof of concept of Ignite as a league is done, it seems that NetEase has their sights set on blowing up in year 2. More events, more teams, more prizes. 2026 is the year of more for Marvel Rivals Esports. We'll bring you all the updates as more information becomes available, but for now, there's more than ever to look forward to when it comes to Rivals Esports. While we eagerly await the start of Ignite preseason, there's still plenty of Rivals Esports action coming out of the Marvel Rivals Championship. And while the 5th season of the MRC may not be part of the 2026 season, it's still the perfect opportunity for teams to show their stuff and get scouted. 8 teams are in standing in each region, so ahead of the conclusion this coming weekend, we wanted to get you up to speed on how we got here. The top 8 teams in the Americas, like the other regions, is a healthy blend of veteran MRC competitors and some new quantities as well. But with so many new teams on the come up, there's only so much room at the top. The Lunex Gaming roster, combining players from the former Sentinels and Shroud X teams, completed a flawless series against Rad Academy to lock in their upper bracket semis slot. They'll be up against Team Guilty, mixing some of Dreamland and Dark Zero's players with Renko, formerly of Sen. They earned that slot with a 3-0 win over Nightmare Academy, making these two rosters some of the deadliest in this MRC. The other upper bracket match is a clash of old and new as Ego Death returns to take on Doom Crew. Ego Death previously bested Flark in a 3-2 barn burner, a roster bringing some old Ego Death faces into the mix with players like Valentina, Soko, and Baser. Doom Crew, a faction built from the ashes of Nemesis alongside Forky Dog, formerly of Solaris and Rad, picked up a huge 3-1 win over Mutants to keep their upper bracket hopes alive. On the lower bracket side, the top team coming out of the qualifier rounds, Mochimon, will square off with another veteran Tier 2 team in the Beasts. Mochimon dealt the finishing blow to Rad Academy with a 3-1 win, a mishmash of players both formerly of Sentinels and Envy. The Beasts had a somewhat surprising 3-1 win over Nightmare Academy, using a roster that they've homegrown and cultivated through previous MRC and community tournament experience. And rounding out the lower bracket side, Flark and Mutants both survive after upper bracket defeats and will be facing each other next. Flark is mostly the roster formerly of Rad Esports, and even further back Solaris, save for the addition of Sentinels Aramori. Mutants went toe-to-toe with Intergalactic, a match they managed to survive with a 3-2 nail-biter. SJP and Millennia, formerly of 100 Thieves, returned to their original roster here, backed by FlyQuest players Energy, Spark Chief, and Vess, alongside Smash from Dark Zero. And they're all being coached in the background by Delena and Vinny from 100 Thieves, Dinks from Nemesis, and Gator from Envy. It's a similar story of old and new in the EMEA region, but there's plenty of newer faces on the upper bracket side. Cooking with Kaya will be facing down Ignite Stage 2 competitors Chopped. Cooking with Kaya, a mix of players formerly from OG and Alcancia, previously swept Insomnia 3-0 to continue their upper bracket campaign. Chopped are no strangers to this level of competition, and they bested Menace to make it this far. On the other side of the bracket, Saudi team the Lions will tango with Final Dance. The Lions may be a new quantity to some viewers, but they've been active in the Saudi Arabian Prime E-League, with its members participating in nearly every season since August. They advanced by winning the Civil War against fellow Saudi team Crownfall 3-0. Final Dance were the winners of the Fnatic Assembled LAN, and now sit just a win away from the upper bracket finals after a 3-2 war against Foot Esports. FD's core consists of several players previously of Zero Tenacity, along with some others like Milkboy, formerly of Alcancia. Down in the lower bracket, Ignite Stage 2 team Dawn Core will battle it out against MRC veterans Alter Zenith. Most of Dawn Core's core remains the same from their run through Ignite Stage 2, though Frostin has departed, with El Chavo Goob taking his place. They kept their tournament run alive by ending Insomnia's run with a 3-1 victory. Alter Zenith have yet to throw their hat in the Ignite ring, but have already improved their standing since their top 16 finish in the Season 4 MRC. They sent Menace home in a 3-1 Firestorm to advance to this round of competition. And finally, in a marquee Ignite matchup, Foot Esports will look to stay alive in the lower bracket as they take on Grand Finals runners-up Navi. Navi have been battling on the bubble since they had some issues mustering the roster in their very first match, but defeated Season 4 runners-up Crownfall to stay alive. Foot bounced back from their defeat at the hands of Final Dance, sending Planet Sainage home in a 3-1 win to keep the run alive. And rounding out this season's bracket with the Pacific region, powerhouses from both Asia and Oceania are still alive and kicking here. In the first clash of Asia and OCE, Ignite Squad XOXO01 will be up against a new faction in To Be Decided. XOXO are back in action after their Stage 2 run, having defeated Flat's Fan Club in a 3-0 sweep to stay in the upper bracket. Their opponents, To Be Decided, are an OCE conglomerate team, combining some players from the former Ground Zero, Quetzal, and Kanga Esports teams. They swept Hackers 3-0 in the previous match to lock in this matchup against XOXO. We've got a big ticket match on the other side of the upper bracket, with grand finalists Crazy Raccoon and Chopper Mag going to war. Crazy Raccoon are of course no strangers to the MRC, having claimed the title of Pack Champs back in Season 3, and they took down Gosari 3-1 to keep their potential second title hopes alive. While Chopper Mag have yet to clinch an MRC title, they did outlast Crazy Raccoon in Atlanta, clocking a top 6 finish and capturing the hearts of many fans. They defeated N1 Hex in a dominant 3-0 in the previous match. Down in the lower bracket, Zero Tenacity's Asia roster is still kicking, welcoming in Creative, formerly of Yo Yang Wan, as well as Marvel from Reject. Z10 is hot off delivering a 3-0 coup de grace to Flats Fan Club, a win that puts them up against a newcomer team in Hackers. This team is one of the pack dark horses, having survived an all-out battle against Plasterbrain 3-2 in the previous round. The final lower bracket matchup is between Gosari and Tech Thunder. with Gosari surprisingly eliminating former Stage 2 OCE runners-up Vulcan Red in a 3-0 sweep. But the Gosari players are no slouches, bringing in Stage 2 competitors Rocco and Solman from Kanga Esports, as well as Hoodie, formerly of Gen G. Tech Thunder are a bit of an unknown quantity themselves, but keep their lower bracket campaign rolling with a 3-1 win over N1 Hex, a team consisting of names with Ignite Stage 2 experience like Hybolical and X. It's shaping up to be an absolute slugfest across the globe this weekend as the Season 5 MRC reaches its big conclusion. Having Ignite teams and players this time around has certainly helped elevate the competition, but it seems as though Ignite experience alone doesn't guarantee you success. Regardless of who you're rooting for, this is shaping up to be an explosive finale, one that sunsets this era of the Marvel Rivals Championship before the MRC becomes integrated into the Pro League system. And speaking of the MRC, we're continuing our deeper than usual dive into this season's competition this week. We sat down with two entities competing in this season's MRC to get their background, their thoughts on the competition, and their takes on the newly announced 2026 changes. The first of those guests is Boomer, owner of the org Big Steppers and the MRC faction of the same name. We wanted to get the org's perspective on competitive rivals as a whole, but especially in regards to those 2026 updates. To kick things off, we asked, how did the Big Steppers initially come together?
There's this newer entertainment esports crossover league called Global Gaming League, and so it's its own ladder, its own community where people like me, just, your average person, you compete in all these different tournaments for all these different games, and eventually you get the opportunity to be on an esports team within Global Gaming League. But the unique thing about it is all of those teams are celebrity sponsored. So like Neo will have a team, T-Pain will have a team, Ric Flair will have a team. Me and my best friend in real life, who's now working with me on the organization, Jacob, or Synthetic, him and I went into there as a duo, and we did a bunch of tournaments. Along the way, we met Sufi, who is now the co-owner. We met Shippo, who's one of our casters who you recently met. And so we competed in a bunch of games, and then Rivals was the big one for us.
How would you describe the culture and chemistry within Big Steppers?
Having the communication, whether it's from your teammates to your coaches or to somebody that may be a little bit out of the picture like me, or, coming up, showing up every day, fired up, ready to go, right? We drop a map, let's go out there and win. I think those two are the biggest parts of our culture that, from a team perspective, I think have brought us a long way, and I think are going to keep pushing us along the way.
Can you walk us through some of the team's competitive Rivals history?
Yeah, so it really is a story of zero to hero, especially for our context. Again, season 2.0, we got ranked 331. The next season after that, we got top 256. Then last season in 4.0, we got top 128. That is a little bit, we did get kind of, screwed over a little bit in a good way though, because we went to LAN. We got to go to compete at a LAN event in Vegas. So that hurt our open qualifier matches to where we didn't get to finish them. Also, it made the bracket run a lot harder, but take that as you will.
From the team's past competitive experience, what's a key lesson you think you've learned?
I think it's to be open-minded, right? Don't be afraid to try new things, whether it be, hey, let's try a new schedule this week. Let's give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out. It's not the end of the world, Being open-minded and understanding that things just aren't going to fall apart over a little mistake. You know what I mean? I think that's been a key lesson for all of us, for me and the staff, for the players. I think another part is, what defines you and what you do. So something I talk to the players about and something that I live by is, one bad ultimate, one bad round doesn't make you a bad person, right?
What are your initial reactions to the 2026 Ignite announcements?
Seeing this announcement, it's like, all right, we have no choice but to go out there and try to make it. This is our chance. This is the chance for us. This is where we really get in there and compete in MRCs that maybe, for lack of better terms, matter a little bit more. Now I think this opens the door for a lot of the T2 and T3 scene as well. So we're really excited to get our foot in there and continue wrapping up the way that we are. I think the point system, is really, really a great idea. I love that. I think the point system especially emphasizes the small wins. In
light of all the new things coming to competitive Rivals, what are the team's goals going into the new year?
I think as we've grown, there's been a lot of volatility in the roster. Some of it's just players were kind of in the same spot where they're trying out Rivals, the competitive scene, testing the water, seeing if it's for them. For some people, it wasn't for them, For this season 5.0, we set our roster probably about 18 hours before MRC started. And so with the longer extended contract length, right, we're looking to really solidify who are going to be our guys and who are we really going to build this thing with and who are we really going to invest in. And so I think looking for consistency and who we have, I think is a really important part.
And of course, we couldn't help but ask, is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, a hot dog's a hot dog. When you look at a menu, and you have both of them are there, there's sandwiches and then there's hot dogs, right? If it was a hot dog, or if a hot dog was a sandwich, you would see it listed under sandwiches, I think.
A huge thank you to Boomer for his time and insights. The Big Steppers are a team that's organically risen and grown alongside rivals, having competed in several seasons of the MRC. And they're certainly a team to be on the lookout for as the year progresses, having clocked another top 64 finish in the Season 5 MRC. And with future MRCs being more important than ever, there's no doubt that teams like Big Steppers and many others will be stepping up to the plate to compete for those Ignite spots. And finally this week, we're bringing you one more interview to round things out for this report. Moving past team administration with this one, we also sat down with current Vulcan Red Vanguard player Wav, who competed with the team during Ignite Stage 2 and is still with them as of the Season 5 MRC. Wav has a background in hero shooters prior to Marvel Rivals, and also competed in several Rivals tournaments alongside the former Arrival 7 roster. To get the ball rolling, we asked, how did you get started in competitive Rivals?
I played Alpha. I played the Alpha tournament, but then I took a really long break from gaming to sort of work on work, and I didn't really play the beta, nor did I play Season 0. And then in Season 1, I got hit up from my, at the time, friend Fandori, and he said, hey, do you want to start a team? I said, yeah, sure, and it just sort of took off from there. In terms of my competitive past, I played on Iliad Orion, and then after that, I joined Arrival 7 with Hoffman, Flamme, Monotone, Pinnacle, and Chemicals. Following A7, I decided to swap to the Asia OCE region, Pacific, because I do my work as a bartender, and it's very hard for me to work. So Asia just worked better for me in terms of I would probably get off my shift at like 3 o'clock, and then scrims would be at 4.
Looking back on your competitive gaming experience, what's a key lesson you feel you've learned?
There's a very big difference that you need to have between having an ego in the server and out of the server. Like when I played Overwatch, I had an ego in both, which was really bad. Talk all the shenanigans you want in match chat. Like you gotta be able to sort of have that ego that you're the best player, but you also can't be afraid to talk to your coach, and the coach comes to you and says you're horrible, and you have to take that. You know what I mean? You can't argue with that. You can't rebuttal that. You have to take what they say, and sure, you might have some discrepancies on what they say, but you have to take their advice, right?
What keeps you motivated to keep grinding and competing at this level?
I'm just a really competitive person, and I think it's definitely my dream to get signed to one of the super big orgs that you see, everyone hyping up. I've been already extremely privileged for my opportunity at Vulcan Red. For Ignite, they flew me out like halfway across the world to play, and that's just an amazing experience to have. Not only just good traveling that far, but also being in a different country for video games, just really eye-opening.
What are your initial reactions to the 2026 Ignite announcements?
I think the ecosystem they're introducing is great, and I think that the smaller amount of teams to LAN will sort of increase the competitive integrity of it. There's a couple things I am fearful though with what they announced, that mainly being the Pacific region.
Having some experience competing with Vulcan Red, what's your take on the announced Asia OCE merger?
It might not seem like a lot, but all the Australian teams are going to have to play on 150 ping in their own region. And that might not seem like a lot, like on paper, but trust me, like I get 200 from Canada playing to Sydney. It is really bad. And I don't know how they're going to curve that, whether it's one map sort of Tokyo, one map Sydney servers. That's my biggest concern, especially knowing a lot of the players in Oceania and Asia.
In light of all the new things coming to competitive Rivals, what are your goals going into the new year?
My goal overall is definitely to go to LAN and do well at LAN. I think that's sort of everyone's goal. And like with 2025, like how well it went, I think I can accomplish that, especially with Ignite going this well and how fast I'm progressing as a player. I definitely think I can not only make 2026 Ignite, but also do well enough in it.
And finally, you guessed it, is a hot dog a sandwich?
I mean, like, technically it is. Like a hot dog, no, well, a sandwich is 2 pieces of bread with something inside. So the question is, does the connection of the 2 pieces of bread not consider it a sandwich? Is a calzone a sandwich? Is a Jamaican beef patty a sandwich? Because that's 2 pieces of pastry with meat in the middle. I don't think it can be considered a sandwich because it's connected.
And another huge thank you to WAV for his time as well. Vulcan Red climbed their way to a top 12 finish in this season's MRC, just short of their previous top 4 finish in the season 3 MRC. But as one of the breakout teams in the OCE region during stage 2 of Ignite, it's no surprise to see them still finishing ahead of some of the competition. Only time will tell what's in store for these players and teams, as there's sure to be a lot of migration in the wake of these new esports announcements. But the hope is that players like WAV will have even more opportunities as the competition ramps up. Well, that's all for this week's Rivals Report. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest in Marvel Rivals Esports. And be sure to follow me on other platforms, including Twitch, X, and TikTok. I've been Diatonic, you've been amazing, and I'll see you in game.